The question for this is, and we sort of heard it in the panel, that implementation and delivery will mean hard choices. There will be winners as well as losers in the transition, including many who might want to hold on hard and fast to the use of fossil fuels. There's going to be a lot of different agendas. So it sort of speaks to what a conversation that's already been picked up, which is, what are we going to need to secure the necessary buy-in to ensure a swift as well as a just transition? So I'll say it again, what do we need to do to secure the relevant buy-in for a swift as well as a just transition? So again, bearing in mind that there will be winners and losers and that hard choices are going to be made that are going to affect different constituencies. So 10 minutes again, I'll give you a 2-minute warning and then we'll open up the conversation again.
This is a very difficult question because it's about bringing everyone with us on the same education journey. That's generally, from us, from our perspective, it's about communication and education. And that's not just children, it's throughout society. I think, and I suppose I have an inside knowledge, I suppose, because sitting where I do in the Climate Council, there's very confused messages. There's very technical messages. There's very scary messages. And I think we need to balance that kind of I suppose, saturation of bad news with opportunity. So in terms of bringing people with us, I suppose from the table's perspective, we were looking for a more honest education on climate change. And I suppose it goes back to our earlier question, giving some priority around what needs to be delivered, because I think there's an awful lot that's being asked to deliver and it all can't be done together. So I suppose from our perspective it was, I suppose, simplifying the message, getting rid of some of the misinformation that goes on around it and providing a wider education to all areas of society on it. Just to the just transition, we had a question among ourselves, what does just transmission mean to any of us? And to all of us. So it depends where you sit in society or where you sit in the world. If you sit in sub-Saharan Africa, a just transition is very different from what it looks like if you're sitting in South County Dublin and the impact of it. So I think from that perspective, we need to understand the impact of everything and every choice and every priority we make. So I suppose that's... Of course,
even the same locally, we were just saying, if you are able to, have a heat pump in your home where you drive an electric car, that's also a question of privilege. Those can afford the transition are those with the resources mostly to do so. I'm going to pick on this table directly in my line of vision here. Yeah, thanks, Guillaume.
Thank you. Well, we went along the very similar lines, Jillian, and I suppose we more regarded that most of the resistance to what we're trying to achieve comes from the older cohort in terms of more mature people, and the example was given of the flood wall in Clontarf and the objections coming in because it disturbed the view. And after millions of euros being spent to lower the wall, we now know the implications. So when you consider the myriad number of objections that come to any planning that has a climate aspect, we certainly felt at this table, and it's a small table as well, that we should focus the communications on that cohort and, in the context of the implications like Brexit, where you had that section of the society have a huge impact on the decision for the country. We felt that a communication strategy is required to really educate that cohort and maybe really short, sharp, consistent messaging along the lines of what was used in the context of COVID, or that tone of voice for the road safety campaign, really startling, in terms of messaging around your objections will mean this, something like that. But we haven't distilled it down further, but certainly communications, focused education, particularly on the older age group, because the younger ones get it.
Yeah, and road safety is an interesting one where over a generation, through changed legislation, but also through changed campaigning and marketing, we went from it being acceptable to have 4 or 5 pints and get in a car. You mightn't have got a conviction in court to now where it is gone. So there's a lot around sort of changing behaviour analysis through good communication. What about this small but perfectly formed table over here? Don't want to leave you out.
Okay, can you hear me? So I suppose the most obvious answer we came up with was for swift and just transition and for buy-in is money. That that needs to be properly funded so that these kind of transitions can take place. But at the same time, it's not all about money. That there's also issues like people's identity and kind of social issues. So let's say farmers, for instance, that they have a very strong identity as farmers, and that even if you pay them to do something else, they may not feel that fits with their identity and these kinds of issues. So we've seen that in maybe planting forestry, that's been one of the factors holding that back, that farmers don't consider that to be proper farming. So, even if they made more money, they still don't consider that as kind of as big a part of the identity. So those kinds of issues kind of have to be brought in and thought about as well in a way that probably haven't been up to now. We also kind of thought that there probably needs to be different solutions for different places. So what may work well in Dublin mightn't work well in Offaly or Mayo, or what might work in a county town mightn't work well in a very isolated rural area. That there may be need for different priorities or different nuances in different places, and that we kind of talked a lot about the whole planning system, and that the difficulties of getting things done quickly, as some of the other tables have talked about. That there maybe needs to be more of an emphasis on the kind of what's good for society, what's the greater good, rather than what's good for a specific individual. That maybe there needs to be more emphasis given to what's good on a societal level, rather than just having to satisfy every single objection that comes up.
That's superb. Thank you very much. Who have I not spoken to? This table here, and is there anyone else I've left out? Just up the front. Okay, we'll take.
Very briefly, another small but perfectly formed table here. And I guess just to kind of touch off some of the points that were made, we actually felt that the people that we needed to talk to were younger people, not older people. That essentially the people in the room here are a subset of the older group. And we either get it, I think we do, or we don't, the people that aren't in the room here today. So really the people we need to get to buy in are going to be younger people rather than older people. And just to amplify a point made over here, we had a good discussion about the Science Blast program and how that behaves differently in different cities and towns. And we felt that, one size doesn't fit all. So we may need to kind of customize whatever we're doing to different parts of the country and to different audiences. So they were really the...
That's superb. Thank you very much.
It's a wicked problem. This is a wicked problem, and getting buy-in is difficult.
It is indeed. This, was it Tom's table? Was it... Did I miss out on you? Yes, I did indeed. Okay, it's just the microphone here. And just as the microphone's actually being passed along, last month the music bursary for the RDS was issued to a young player called Adam Buttimer. The first time it's ever been issued to someone who plays the tuba. And so afterwards, if you want to hang around, there's going to be a very, very special performance Adam's going to be playing. So if you do have a little bit of time, it might be lovely to go along and support Adam. But back to communications. Ian.
Hi, I think we actually agreed with a number of the points, particularly the last couple of tables that had said. We did feel, actually, we agreed that we need older people. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, is that okay? You were missing out on gems. So really, we decided that what we need is cultural change, that's fairly evident, but that every cohort needs to be targeted in this sense. Perhaps, yes, the older people who aren't in the room, or as we're part of that cohort, but also the young who are very aware of everything at a younger age and then tend to fall away when they're teenagers and having lengthy showers and much less interested in all of this and looking at fast food. So, I think it is the fact that we need, or we were talking about a cultural shift, so that there is awareness all of the time. And the way that we would look at this as swift and just transition, and I think that point was really well made about what is just in different places. Sorry, that was my personal add-in. So obviously we need carrots and we need sticks. That seems to be what works. And we've looked at the sticks that worked before, plastic bag tax, the one we always talk about, the levy, and cigarettes were kind of, people changed their behaviours. And as we were saying, the countryside changed, almost not quite overnight, but suddenly we're not full of plastic bags. So, we managed to get that message across, and it was very, very effective. And people have been remarkably compliant. And something that people talk about all the time now is how much packaging there is in supermarkets. They don't want it to be there. They don't want to see their vegetables and their apples in it or whatever. But they do, and it's what do we do with it? We were looking at the carrot side of things on this, which is more accessibility to recycling centres and clarity about where our recycling goes. So educate people so that they don't put soiled items in the wrong bags. But if you know that it's actually going to landfill in Indonesia, or we can't deal with it here, the message loses any validity whatsoever, and nobody's going to listen to the next message that comes. So again, it's about clarity and coordination of the messages coming out, education regarding recycling, and incentives being given, like the new bring back your stuff and get your 10p or your 5p, whatever it is. So the idea that we would stop, implement the regulation and the programs that are in place, make them clear, get them to work. It's almost like a slight moratorium, and then start moving forward with all the new steps that we need. This is really short term, but key to getting clarity. Then we have regular regulation and penalisation. They're both going to come together. And then access, easy access. The easier the access, the more the people will do it. The more all of us will. If it's on our doorstep, we'll do it. And then if we just look at it, and we had looked at this as our answer to the previous one, but if we're looking at cultural change, I think we're looking at serious reassessment of our infrastructure. And our infrastructural changes, the building of large motor routes, how we build towns and everything, actually can inform at a micro level every single one of these changes that we've just suggested or made as carrot or stick.
That's superb. Thank you very, very much. But I'm going to actually thank you for all of your contribution. We are going to pull them all together for a report.